Sunday, tomorrow we're coming out there. Henry's surprising me when he's out there. They send Nick with him to that yard. So, Nick, what?
I will tell you that it's kind of a joy to lead singing out at the women's prison because they are enthusiastic. Oh, I mean, they sing. They throw themselves in. Heavenly sunlight, walking in sunshine all of my journey, over the mountains, through the deep vale. Jesus has said, I'll never forsake thee, promise divine that never can fail. Heavenly sunlight, flooding my soul with glory divine. Hallelujah, I am rejoicing, singing his praises, Jesus is mine. Verse 3, in the bright sunlight, ever rejoicing, pressing my way to mansions above. Singing his praises, gladly I'm walking in sunlight, sunlight of love. Heavenly sunlight, flooding my soul with glory divine. Hallelujah, I am rejoicing, singing his praises, Jesus is mine.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have the distinct privilege of having two gentlemen, New Life. How many are using New Life Behavior? Not very many. Oh, things may change. Dale Underwood and Buck Griffith, and Buck has been doing this stuff since the beginning of time. And they produce materials that we've been using here at Fort Gibson for 20 years, 25 years, I don't know. How long have you been doing this, Buck?
I've been doing this since the garden. But it's going to be 100 years at least.
At least.
First used to work with my hands.
Our work would not be happening if it was not for New Life Behavior. We use several of their courses each and every week. We baptize an awful lot of folks because of New Life Behavior. And so without spending too much time here, we're going to get Buck up here and Dale and let them explain to you, if you're not familiar with New Life Behavior, what it is. Where's your clicker? Clicker?
Right here.
Right here, good, okay. I'll take care of that.
Yeah, I'm not a clicker. I'm old-fashioned. So it is good to be with you this weekend, and certainly enjoyed last night and enjoyed getting to hear the chaplain this morning. We're going to go through several things. We're going to pass this list around for you to sign up. You might pass that board along with it so you got something to press against. But if you're here today and want to become a certified instructor of the New Life Behavior curriculum, then please fill out that. We particularly need your name as it appears on your driver's license. For instance, my driver's license says my name is David A. Griffith. So I wouldn't want to be certified under Buck. They will learn that soon enough. So please give that address that is on your driver's license as well. Most of the facilities, whenever you're going to come in, they're going to use that driver's license as your form of ID. And if you're ever asked if you have training to teach a New Life Behavior course, you want to be able to say, yes, I'm a certified instructor. That means that whenever we get back home, everyone that fills that out on this list that you're signing up on today will receive a certificate that declares that, so that you can make copies, you can keep it, whatever you want to do with it. But sometimes what they'll do is they will call us, I'll call our office, and just want to know, is it true that so-and-so is a certified instructor? And we can verify that by our records. Now, it will ask for your driver's license number in the state that you are licensed to drive a vehicle in. Usually you want that to be the same state in which you're going to be volunteering at a prison. So be sure and fill that out. We did bring a limited number of packets. These are packets that we use even to train people through the mail if there's no other way to get that done. It is obviously the least effective, in my opinion, because, you know, it's kind of like book learning, and you didn't have a live opportunity to study this process. So if you are particularly here with an interest in that, even if it's if you've got multiple people here that's from a congregation, take a packet and then you can make copies when you get back to the office. But if you would raise your hand and keep your hands raised if you're here particularly to be certified today as an instructor. And there is no way that we could do this justice in the amount of time that we have. And some of you have probably been teaching New Life Behavior curriculum for years, but you've never been formally trained or certified, so we don't have you on our list. We would like to have you on that list, and so that's the purpose of passing the tablet around. And please make sure whenever that's finished that we get it back up here on the front row. Dale is going to be putting out numerous things here on the front row, and what we want to do a little bit later is to actually go through and demonstrate sort of how we would do one of our classes. Basically, this is how I do a class in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And Dale, there's one more over here. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's to use any of the New Life Behavior curriculum. There are currently 15, but it's not the church that's certified, it's the individual that's going to be going in and teaching. So, yeah. And again, a lot of you may have been teaching this curriculum for many, many years. I get calls every now and then, and they will say, well, I've been teaching for 10 years or 15 years or whatever. And I'll say, well, what courses do you have a license to? And they'll say, all of them. Well, the thing is, I don't think you've probably got 15 licenses. Each course has its own individually numbered license. So it's easy also to trace that back and say, yes, now the congregation would only get one license, or if it's not the congregation involved but a particular ministry, then that ministry, the license would be made out in the name of whatever that ministry is. But they'll say all of them. I'll say, well, could you tell me specifically? And back in the olden days, going back to Adam and Eve, H.L. Motsinger started this thing in 1984 in Dallas, Texas, and he only wrote the first course, A Sense of Self. Dale was asking me last night after, he said, which courses did H.M. write? I thought he wrote most of them. And I said, no, what he has is the copyright to most of them because he started it, and he is the author of Course 1, A Sense of Self. But after that, he started recognizing that, hey, I can't write all of this. You can't be an expert in everything. One of the comedy of things to me is to find these little, maybe one stall garage mechanic, but their sign out front says, we repair all makes, all models. It's a lot of difference between a Honda and a Chevrolet or a Ford. You cannot be an expert, and you got to be an expert in transmission repair, just start going through everything. You cannot do that, all makes and all models. What I really like is that this guy is a pro when it comes to a particular thing. So the better we can do that, I know whenever I go to my doctor, I've got an appointment for a CT scan on Monday morning, and that's all they do. That's all they do. If I have an ingrown toenail, I don't go to the folks that do CT scans of brains. And Dale likes to say, well, they probably won't find anything anyway. I get a lot of calls from people who say, I need to pick your brain a little while. And I said, well, it won't take long. Slim pickings, yeah. So if you're here to be certified, we need to get your name and information on that list. And be assured that we don't share that information with anybody else, and that information may change. So if you move to another state, if you have a different address, if you have a different license number in Tennessee than you used to have in Alabama, please let us know that, because that's for your advantage more than anything. Now, if we ran out of packets, don't worry about that. You can just contact our office or email us at our email address, and we'll be glad to send one of those to you. Again, there's no way that we can cover everything that is on this schedule. But 1984, it started in Dallas, Texas. Dr. H.L. Motsinger, who was an educator and a licensed family counselor, and that was his expertise. And so A Sense of Self and then Course 2, A Sense of Family, really made sense. After that, he started deputizing people around the country that he found were very knowledgeable in these other areas. What he did do, though, generally with those authors, is that he paid them for their authorship, but he purchased the copyright to those courses. So if you go down to the bottom of those courses and you see copyrighted whatever year and then the name. Whenever I came on board in the late 90s and wrote the CASA course, that was Course 8. And he asked me the same thing. He said, I'd like to pay you a certain amount of money and then I own the copyright. And I said, I don't think I want to do that. And I guess that's why they asked me in 2002 to succeed him as the president of New Life Behavior Ministries. He saw that I wasn't going to go with his original game plan, but that, his original game plan isn't going to work. So today we have 15 courses. Our most recent course is called Managing My Dollar, because we found that many people, even that have never gone to prison, need to learn how to manage their money. And when I first said I'm researching that for this course, I can't tell you how large the stack is of money management material I got. Most of it was telling you how to invest in the stock market and about IRAs. And I said, these guys are not interested in investing in the stock market right now. They're going to get a fairly low-paying job, most of them, and they need to know how to make that paycheck last from last Friday to the next Friday. So it's very simple. It's very easy to understand, and that's the way we feel like that it has to be. So that's just a part of preparation for release and hopefully less recidivism. So in 2002, after 18 years of New Life Behavior being in Dallas, Texas, when they asked me, I said, I live in Corpus Christi, and that's a fair chunk of miles away from here, and that's where my home is, that's where I was born, that's where my support is, both volunteers and financially. And so if I do it, we're going to have to relocate the office to Corpus Christi. And I was kind of hoping that they would say, okay, never mind. But instead they said, how fast can you get a U-Haul up here? And so that's what we did. So 18 years in Dallas, then now it's been 20 years, been 2 years longer than it was in Dallas. The main office is in Corpus Christi, Texas. As you can tell from the color of my hair, I need to retire. So this young man that is with us today, Dale Underwood, also has a doctor's degree. His is in education as well, but he spent about 25 years in youth ministry, and he was the lead singer in the Sounds of Glory Gospel Quartet and so forth. And I always thought how neat that would be to have that ability. I'm just going along and I think about a song, but you don't want to hear me sing. No, you don't know it. And I thought, but how great it would be to just break into this hymn right now to empower this lesson. Well, Dale can do that. I can't do that. That people would never come back to that class. They would rather stay in prison the rest of their life. It's serious business. So I'm going to turn this over to Dale, because this is probably the last of these events that I'm going to be doing this kind of training at. And so I'm glad to be here. It's been a great joy. I got started in Dallas County Jail in 1971, so this makes my 52nd year to be involved in this type of ministry. But obviously New Life Behavior didn't begin back there. I knew Dr. Motzinger because he actually was the superintendent of Dallas Christian Schools, and he had been to the congregation where I was preaching, introducing us to Dallas Christian Schools. But I didn't see the role for this kind of curriculum at that time. I was one of those old school, hear, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized, and I thought that's all they need to hear. Wrong. So I'm here today to tell you, hopefully you can see the unique and vital role that New Life Behavior curriculum plays in the lives of those incarcerated and their families. Dale, take it over.
You know, I get in his shoes and it looks like I'm a clown. Let me introduce myself to you real quick. I spent 30 years in education as an administrator, principal, superintendent, things like that. And I never had any intention of being one of you people. I was not, I mean, I would applaud you, right? I had a lot of good friends who served in prison ministry, and, you chaplains are crazy, that kind of stuff. But I didn't have any intention to do that. About 12 years ago, in my last stint as a school administrator, I had we have region service centers in Texas. about 20 of them across the state. And a dear friend of mine who's been a former superintendent serving as a field rep over there came over to me and said, Dale, he said, would you ever consider serving at this? He said, it's a school not like anything you've ever been a part of. He said, these kids need discipline, and they need God, and they need love. And he said, not really sure what order. And I'm going, okay. And so I took a look at it, and it just captured my heart, because they were doing a whole lot more than scratch the surface. Because if you've got a school going in the direction it ought to go, a trained monkey can sit in that principal seat for about 3 years before it falls apart and anybody notices. But they were doing more than scratch the surface, because every one of these kids that were coming from the 188 consortium counties of the 254 in the state of Texas were coming from court orders from county judges, whether it's foster care or whether it was Texas Juvenile Justice Department or whether it was county probation departments. And so this facility was a residential facility with a charter school that was vocationally based. So the idea was to teach these kids skills, give them OSHA, NCCER, rig pass, food handlers, food managers, junior ASC, junior master gardener, all kinds of skills in vocationals, and then get them back in the counties where they come from and hope that the recidivism would be low. And I was fascinated by the work they were doing. And I didn't know that God was preparing me for this. 2 years ago, I had a quadruple bypass. I didn't know I didn't have any history there, and it wasn't going to come off the table, apparently. And when I did, and I retired from my wife so that she could get that retirement, I looked around and I said, I want to do some good before I get to be room temperature. And I don't know how many heartbeats I've got left, but I'm going to go where the fields are widest, where I can do the most good. Buck had been bugging me for 4 or 5 years. And when I came out of that, I said to myself, I can go preach somewhere, and I can, Lord willing, be effective in a congregation, but this ministry has a worldwide footprint. This effort is reaching tens of thousands. Jim, you were talking, James, about Oklahoma. We've got 99 TDCJ units, state units in Texas, with 150,000 people on regular that are incarcerated, and about 50,000 a year are getting out. And so one of the things that God had been developing me for that I didn't know, you know how that works, was this ministry. And re-entry is a passion for me. I had people from Amarillo down to Raymondville. And for those of you that don't know Texas, Panhandle down to the Valley. And all the urban points between that were job specialists that when kids got out of our program, we'd stay with them for at least a calendar year afterwards. Make sure they went to school, make sure they stayed on that job, make sure they got that job. So recidivism was in the single digits for us. Well, it's at 60% in TJJD. That means more than half the kids that get out are going back in. It's about 30% for TDCJ. Now, state people can manipulate numbers and make that look better than it is, but 30% and 60% still sounds pretty bad to me. So one of the things that we're working on for the next curriculum manual is a reentry curriculum. And James, this may sound attractive to you, but we're working with the TDC chaplaincy. As a matter of fact, C.F. Hazelwood, the director of chaplains, is a friend, and then that's another thing God did. And he said, Dale, we need this curriculum. We're trying to get rid of the fluff stuff in our prisons, and we need this because, and watch this language, it causes the cognitive shift from destructive behaviors to a positive walk. And CF's a man of faith, but TDC's not an operation of faith. But they recognize what's happening when people are exposed to faith. And when people are exposed to just one of these curriculum courses in our recidivism studies, and we've done 2 or 3 of them now that have involved more than a couple of thousand people, there's less than 1% that reoffend. So I don't know what that says to you, but when I think of 30% to 60% recidivism, that's pretty effective. And it's effective because of the people that are teaching and using it. So NOBM is, it's more of a practical walk. If you know, Buck and I were talking about this. I don't know how many of you guys are using it. Not many, but there's a lot of different approaches here. A lot of people get into prison because of their drug habits. They may have stolen, they may have robbed, but they're doing it to support their drug habit. Other people get in because of their passions and anger management. And those are 2 of the courses that we really hone in on in chaplains like, because this is curriculum-based, curriculum-driven. And our chaplains in Texas are the ones who direct us which ones they want to teach. Right now I'm in a prison unit in Beeville, and I'm teaching a Christians Against Sexual Addiction course. Now that's unusual for me. I hadn't expected to do that. But it's a powerful thing. I've got a faith-based unit of about 45, 46 guys, and 2/3 of them are SOs. And so there's a real strong need for that. But in every one of these curriculums, one of the criticisms I think, Buck, sometimes of curriculums is, does it do what you were banging on the pulpit? Hear, repent, confess, believe, be baptized. But the practical walk of helping somebody beyond the moment, because we're pretty good about bringing people to a knowledge of Christ. We're pretty bad about walking with them after the fact. And so one of the things that we're working toward with that reentry curriculum, when we get that out this next year, is we're going to be working with chaplains in those regions around Texas. They have a knowledge like you do of where the jobs are in their region. But when somebody gets out of a prison unit in Amarillo and gets off the bus in Beaumont, they're not talking to the chaplain in Beaumont. They're just getting off the bus. So what we're trying to do in that reentry curriculum is to connect the vocational, the spiritual, mentorship, and the cultural changes, right, that are happening, and the relationship changes that are happening from the time they went in to the time they got out with the local area. So Lord willing, when that comes out in the next year, we'll have worked with TDC chaplains in those areas and gotten their database of jobs and our databases of ministries. And I want to tell you something, guys. Here's the thing. Do the math again. If you got 50,000 people a year getting out, let's say half of them. How much is half? 25,000. Okay, we got to work on Oklahoma math. 25,000. So if half of 25,000 is 12.5, if half of that is 6, if half of that is 3,000, if we're down to 5% of those people that are in prison that are doing reentry work before they get out, and then we're connecting them with ministries and churches that have a spiritual appetite to work with ex-offenders, do we have enough people who will work with 3,000 people getting out? That scares me when I think about where we are as a church and our interest in working with people that are incarcerated. So anyway, I've gotten way off topic. I'm sorry. Keys to success when we talk about NLBM. Love your students. Don't overreact to successes or failures. Obey all the rules, and if in doubt, ask. And then don't let outsiders or insiders discourage you. You have a mission and a purpose. You need to be about that. The power of networking in this. If you look at your packets, as you go through those, we have on purpose. I'm going to use your packet since you're not. Shame on you. Thank you, brother. This is the, obviously we're not doing a full-blown training here today. We're just going through the training that we do. So when you look at this packet, you've got several things in here, and I'm going to catch us up to it if I cannot make a mess. You've got the opening letter. You've got our brochures about what New Life is about. This is a monthly newsletter that New Life Behavior puts out. We get into the monarch butterfly, things of that nature. We chose that emblem for the transformation effect that has, and people understand that real quickly. You get down to the next one, it's the many faces of New Life Behavior, and you've got quite a few different directions we go. If you also have that packet, you'll notice that the curriculum is chaplain directed, but it impacts families. And so a lot of what New Life Behavior ends up doing is those unintended consequences of compassion, right? So here you've got families that are impacted by this. So they're coming into our office and having needs while that person's incarcerated. We end up having support groups like concert groups and Winner's Circle and relapse and prevention groups that meet weekly at our offices, and concert groups that meet at our churches around the city of Corpus and things of that nature as support groups. The next page is the power of networking, and that's kind of the one I wanted to light on for a second, because the fields are different. Even in this group of people in this room, many of you are going into prisons, but there are some who do not. There are some that are just working on support groups for those that have just gotten out. There are some that are trying to help the other situations of people that are influenced and the ripple effect that happens to them for people who are incarcerated. So we find that happens a lot when we do this training within LBM. We had some people from Fort Worth down last time we did it, and people over from Austin, I think it was, and different places. And some of them are doing prison work, and some of them are doing Jay, what you were talking about doing, you want to start up a CASA group, but it's not necessarily in prison. I've got a guy that's a chaplain down at the Willacy County Jail down in the valley right now we're going to meet with next week, who is in the jail and wants to do CASA groups in jail and in the church. And so you can do those kinds of things, and there's that flexibility there. One of the things that we found out with CASA groups that I love, we're doing a CASA group on Wednesday nights at King's Crossing, is that we've had 2 or 3 families that have been baptized into Christ, and I've got about 4 or 5 parolees that are coming right now to that, along with several folks within the church that have had addiction issues. And it's such a beautiful melding and blending. We have a freestanding banner of the 12 AA steps, and which is a faith-based structure. And so we pull the AA steps into it with the scriptures as we talk about topics that they're dealing with, and everybody has engagement. It's a beautiful group, about 24 of us that meet. So when we're talking about networking, I think of networking in terms of working with TDC, Texas Department of Corrections, and the different chaplaincies out there, programs that we want to get this reentry curriculum to, and so we can start working with guys as they exit and girls as they exit. Some of them are coming to Oklahoma. So when I think of networking with Oklahoma, I think I need to know these people's names and whatnot. So when somebody heads up to your neck of the woods or your neck of the prairie, I don't know, whichever part of the state it is, that I can contact you and we can continue that walk. Got a guy that's getting out of a TDC halfway house next Tuesday. He's going straight to San Antonio. And so we have a contact in San Antonio that's going to be working with that gentleman as he walks and continues. So that's the effort in the networking. Oh, I guess I need to say this about networking too. At no cost to you, one of the wonderful things is we've got a lot of donors and contributors to both King's Crossing Prison Ministry and New Life Behavior Ministries, which office in the same building, and we use New Life curriculum just like you do, is that we have a national directory that we've been developing. We re-up this every year. So we take off if churches have closed or gone away, or new churches have come in, or new ministries come in, new individuals that are doing this. There's no charge for this. We just want to share that so we're networking together, because this thing is too big for any one of us. That's one of the things I realized early on, is that when we work in silos, that's great that your little territory and my little territories are doing well. But when you have, just in the state of Texas, 50,000 people getting out every year, I need to work outside of my silo. We've got to work together. And we've got to be able to pull together. And we've got to be able to help each other as those people get out, so that they walk with Christ after they meet Him. So these are also available to you. And if you'll make sure sign up on that sheet like Buck was talking about, we'll try to get one of those to you. How am I doing, Buck?
What time are we supposed to be out of here?
It's
That's a good question. Looks like 10:30.
10:30. So we're doing we got about an hour. Okay, all right. I guess. I don't know. What time is it?
We got about 6 minutes.
Are you serious? Okay, let's move on. No, we don't want to infringe on somebody else. No, we want to get that.
No, then we're okay.
So moving through this, we've got 10 principles. Yeah, that guy that's speaking at 10:30 goes, yeah, I really appreciate that. 10 principles for success in jail and prison ministries. A lot of what James shared with you, you're going to find in here. Guidelines for jail and prison ministry workers. Then you get into these programs, these aside programs that I'm going to come back to that in a second, that we deal with. For example, one of the gentlemen, if you haven't read the book Meanest Man in Texas, the Clyde Thompson story. Okay, Clyde was in jail for multiple murder, and then when he tried to escape, this is back in the 20s and 30s, at the farm in Ellis in Huntsville, murdered some more guys in his attempt to escape. Some other guys had 3 life sentences, spent about 35 years in prison, finally paroled, but in the process of all that, spent 6 years in isolation out where they dumped the dead bodies, okay, just in a cinder block room. And during that time, they gave him a Bible, and it just changed his life. And of course, there was a young lady that was corresponding with him too. And eventually, they met, they married, and he became a minister of the gospel before he got out, or after he got out. And I think he died in 79, something like that. But Don Humphreys, I was in Lubbock and met him and was listening to him preach one night. and he asked if he could share his story. Wrote the book, 30 years later, wrote the movie. And so you can go to Hulu, it's in 16 languages around the world, Meanest Man in Texas. And we show that at prison units even, and use that as a vehicle for men to see, yes, you can change. And transformation is possible. And it's a beautiful moment. We also have things called Family Net, Vet Net.
It just changed to 10:45.
Okay, I'm going to hurry though, I promise you.
Whatever.
Then we've got, as we go through this training, we talk about church leadership and NLB curriculum, because if you're wanting to start any type of prison ministry, crosser groups and things of that nature, I keep pointing to Jay because that's what he's trying to do. Church leadership is crucial. I was sitting here last night listening to one of those elders speak, and I was just, kind of wiping the drool away, because I just love it when church leadership is engaged, because that means there's longevity in this ministry, and it's not just hinging on you. There's a focus there, and there's purpose there, and that's exciting, because now you also have resources and you have people supporting that are in places where God's put them. Obviously, there are blessings to the church. I would love to spend some time preaching about that, but I'm not going to do it. This is a curriculum-based and evidence-based curriculum. It's recognized not only by TDC, but a lot of departments of corrections around the nation. We're in 40 states around the country, and then there is an international NOB, which is in nations around the world. So that's when I say there's a global footprint to this. It's a beautiful one. There is a 4-step design that we talk about that you'll find on this Using the NLB Curriculum page. That gets to be important because it's important to have this be not just a practical, help me walk in positive steps, but a spiritual direction of understanding how those steps and where they come from and how you walk with Christ. Every one of these things, every one of these curriculum will eventually lead you to a point where you realize, as the 12 steps say, we were powerless. Step 1, to manage our own lives. And so we released that from the insanity of trying to do this. And the second step says that I recognized a higher power and gave him control over that. And as you move through those 12 steps, step 3, step 4, you're committing yourself to that power. And so each one of these curriculum push you in that direction. And so whether you're overtly talking about repent, believe, confess, be baptized, those kind of things, you're actually moving a person in that cognitive shift away from destructive behaviors to surrendering and letting that higher power, which we believe is God, to take over. All right, so there's a classroom instructor's guide. Man, I made it. Got through this thing. I'm in process right now with the class. I've got you can see the who's present, who's not. We have a little 10-question test at the end of each lesson in the 13-week course kind of thing. The inmates end up getting certificates of completion, which they can show their families, their parole boards, things of that nature, which are very important to them to show their progress, obviously, while they're in there. Buck, let's go back for a second, and let's close with this, the big picture.
Kind of alluded to that in my comments earlier, because whenever I first started, it was, I was just focused on, I was going primarily in the beginning in Dallas County Jail, a rather large facility, and we were baptizing men and women right and left, and a lot of people in the congregation where I was preaching were involved, and I just thought that was it. That was it. In fact, whenever they got sentenced and went on down to TDC somewhere, I thought, well, that's out of my hands. Somebody else is responsible for that. I'll go back and try to dunk the next one in the county jail. And finally I started realizing this is a really big thing we're talking about, this ministry. And now each of us have a cog in the wheel. We have a responsibility and a special place to fill, but let's not lose sight of the fact that it involves a lot of other people. And when HM started this New Life Behavior thing in 1984, I knew about it, and I looked at the curriculum. I wasn't interested because I'm on this fundamentals, how to become a Christian. And my argument was, and I think I argued really well, most of us in churches of Christ are pretty good debaters on stuff like that. And I said, hey, it doesn't make any difference if they are outside of Christ. So they've got a drinking problem, they've got an anger problem, they've got some other issue. Hey, at least they're in Jesus. Well, then I started getting these calls and cries from chaplains and wardens saying everybody from these churches want to come in here on Sunday and save these guys, but we're looking for someone that'll come in on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and teach them how to change the way they live, their behavior. And so I started thinking, I was right about Jesus being the door, and he's the way, the truth, and the life. I'm right about that. And they can't get to heaven any other way but through him. But their behavior, if it's not changed, they're still not going to get to where we want them to go. And so it's not a matter of doing one versus the other. We've got to do them both. We've got to reach the whole person. And so that's when I called up Dr. Motzinger in about, mid-1990s and said, I'm going to come to Dallas and I'll meet you at Olive Garden. We're going to have lunch and I need to talk to you about something. And basically I looked across from that seafood and I said, now I get it. But for some of us, it just takes a long time. And I said, the only thing, because courses only went up through course 7, Attitudes and Behaviors. I said, the only thing, because we'd started Christians Against Substance Abuse in Corpus Christi in 1988. And I said, you don't have anything in here about recovery from addiction. And he said, well, that's because that's not my field. You're going to have to write that. So I just talked myself into something else I had to get done. But that became then course 8. And first thing you know, they wanted to have me in charge of annual training sessions in Dallas. And then they asked me to serve on the board. And I was going from Corpus Christi to Dallas. It's about 400 miles one way for quarterly board meetings, and then up there at other times for training. New Life Behavior used to have an annual training conference in Dallas, and everybody that was interested in being teachers of this curriculum had to come from wherever they were. So you had all these airline flights and motel stays, and it came so close to our National Prison Ministry workshop every June that I said, this doesn't really make sense. Why don't we support the National Prison Ministry workshop every June and just ask them for a time slot to train everybody that's there? Because a lot of people started doing one or two things. They either came to the National Workshop in June, or they came to the New Life Behavior Training Workshop, which was generally like September, October, in the fall. And they said, we can't afford to do both of those. And so that's what we did. They said that makes sense, and so we contribute financially to support that National Prison Ministry Workshop. This next year will be in New Orleans, and then the next year we're going to be hosting it in Corpus Christi. So people don't have to fly from everywhere to Dallas for training anymore. Just one place annually. And then we have statewide workshops, and workshops like you're having here this weekend that kind of supplement that throughout the year. But we're depending on volunteers like yourselves to interest people in this curriculum and do what you can to train others. And Dale's going to be doing this training now, so if anyone wants him to come and help with that, I'll be still working full-time, but behind the scenes and not having to do all this travel. In fact, one of the legs on one of our flights up here yesterday, Dale was blessed. The Lord gave him 2 skinny people to sit next to. I was on the aisle seats, 3 seats.
I was the fat guy,
And so a nice little dainty woman was by the window, and there was an empty seat between us, and I thought, the Lord is still on the job. And I'm going to just be able to kick back here and get a little nap before we get
Thank you,
up
Buck.
there
Thank
to
you very
Tulsa.
much. It's been good to have you on the mic.
Yeah, and then here comes this guy. I started to ask him if he was a Dallas Cowboys lineman. I backed up to let him get that middle seat, but I didn't back up I misjudged his size, and he said, "Excuse me." And then when he sat down, he took up half of both of our other seats, and so the whole flight I was glad my wife always tries to get me on top so I can stick my leg out, But boy, it was torture. So I went through torture to be here. Pray for us that we get to sit by skinny people all the way back.
Hey guys, I need you to do one thing for me. In working on this reentry curriculum, we're continually updating that national data bank of Churches of Christ and those that are involved in prison ministry. But I really do solicit contact with you, because as we bring this reentry curriculum out, we're going to be combining the idea of where the jobs are by knowledge of the chaplains and by knowledge of folks regionally, but also where the ministries are, so that we can connect these folks that are coming out saying, hey, I want to continue to walk with somebody. So it's really important to me that I get your contact information, and just know that that's going to start. We have something called Restorative Justice Program that was started by one of the former TDCJ chaplains, Mr. Solomon, in Texas, and that we're really bringing that into the umbrella of this, along with contacting people in churches as they get out. So please stay in contact with us and make sure and sign up. Yeah, actually, I sent the newsletter sign up instead of the NLB training sign up. Yeah, I did. So I don't know if I got their driver's licenses or not. So that's my fault. So new trainer and stuff. All right, guys. Thank you very much. It's been yes. Oh, questions. Okay, questions. How can I help? James.
You talked about being certified to teach it.
Mm.
Would you be willing to certify inmates to teach the program?
We can. Absolutely. Yeah, we can. Sure can. And look, when we have certified instructors, there's all this stuff is a cost to produce, because we have our own printing press there in the office, and so we produce these things at a nice nominal rate. And that, I think that's all in your packets there. That especially that blue 2-page thing has the whole list of all the curriculum and everything that's in it and the cost of that. But as an instructor, we give a break on that. NLB trained instructor. Am I right, Buck, or am I wrong? There you go. And James, as far as chaplains go, I guarantee you most of the time there is no cost to the chaplains in the prison units with our curriculum.
I was wanting the chaplain to hear this in all of us. I'm sure in Oklahoma, most of the states, like Texas, the chaplain is responsible for whatever program he approves to come on that unit. And chaplains have to be audited too. And so when those programs are being audited, they're going to come in and say, chaplain, what programs do you have? And he'll cite them. And then they're going to say, well,
what's the curriculum? Yeah.
What are you having taught in that class? And he can give whoever's doing that auditing, since this class is on, say, Thursday night. Then they can look through it, and they can see that this meets all of the standards, that this is okay.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to, chaplains have the freedom for us to send them a license to any or all of these courses for nothing. And they will send you that on a flash drive, all 13 lessons in each of the courses.
And while you have 18 chaplains in Oklahoma, you multiply that 3 or 4 times in Texas, and a good number of them their faith is a different faith sometimes than Christian based. And so one of the great things about that is they know exactly what's going to be taught by an NLB trainer, and they know they can be able to say, here's the structured curriculum, this is what's coming in. And one of the things we teach our folks in those trainings is trust that process. And stay with that curriculum, because if you go in there and depart from that, and this is what you said you're going to do, essentially you're lying, and then they don't trust you, and then you have that issue where you can be removed from the ability to go in rather than be productive being in there.
And so with the chaplain having access to all 15 courses, you know, he has the authority as a chaplain at that unit because he's the provider.
Right.
He's the resource person for what the inmates get educationally, especially in a religious sense. And so he may decide, you know, you've got all of your volunteers tied up teaching 2 or 3 or 4 courses. He may, with that license, recruit some other volunteer or some chaplains teach it themselves. And in fact, I was asked one time to find out how many of the Texas prison units actually were having new life behavior courses, and no one would tell me, but I had a really nice Baptist chaplain friend in East Texas that forwarded to me that information on the QT, and I thought, wow, and Texas has a code, Churches of Christ teaching this, 8841, I think, is our code. But guess what? 42 are Baptist people that are teaching this. 43, we even have Catholics teaching this. And so, hey, I would love to be able to say, you know, it's volunteers from Churches of Christ that are teaching all of these courses. But that's impractical. Do you want the people to get the material, or do you not? So let the chaplain do his job. If we did our job any better and we had more people to do our jobs, we would have volunteers there. The chaplain wouldn't turn you down to come in and do this. It's just that you don't have the volunteers and they don't have the time.
We've just got
A couple of minutes left. Any other questions?